Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about The Cleaning Lady, Season 4, Episode 3. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So we're picking up in the aftermath of last episode. That line, it wasn't until we reheard it again during our little recap at the beginning when Jorge's like, I'm going to need you to keep him alive. I felt like Jorge hadn't gotten to the guy yet and we're about to go get the guy and I'm going to torture him and I need you to keep him alive. Kind of that, but wasn't expecting like, oh no, the dude's in critical condition because the guy sent to capture him ended up like causing him to crash. One of his legs is broken. I mean, you can literally see it while he's laying on the ground. His leg is bit the other way. I was like, oh, that's grody. And so, yeah, it's up to Tony to save his life, got a whole surgical tent and everything, and ends up doing the best job she can, trying to make sure he's okay. She's telling Jorge, give him time to heal, because if you push him too much, you won't get any answers, but Jorge's on a timetable because he needs to get answers immediately. I mean, the sooner you find out who's gunning after you, the way you can prevent them from doing it again. So it's understandable why he's also, because also it also plays into a show of strength, because the longer he seems vulnerable and the people already disrespecting him and not really listening to him because, you know, Ramona has all the power. So the longer that goes on, the more of an issue it is, and the more it chips away at his position as leader of Sin Cara, his legitimacy to Sin Cara. You know, even though he does have the throne legitimately, it's just, once again, people only see Ramona as the queen pin of it all. But they bring in, was it Neto, the kind of rough guy who, you know, can torture information out of people. So Jorge didn't listen to what Tony says, like, yo, like, when he wakes up, like, call me and I'm gonna check on him tomorrow. It's like, well, Jorge, like, nah, because Neto kind of pokes at Jorge because he's like, hey, you're still that scared little boy. He's like, I remember when we went hunting and, like, you couldn't even do the final kill, so I had to step in to do it. But it's like, oh, look at you now, El Jefe of the Sin Cara. Look at you now, you know. So he ends up torturing the guy, and his name is Rex. As Tony finds out when she comes back the second time, she finds out, like, after seeing the treatment he got, she's trying to save him and kind of make sure that he's okay. It's like, because he ends up kind of, and I think initially kind of somewhat passing out from the pain. But yeah, the sad thing is, he is a guy who's like, who knew nothing about the job. He's like, I was hired. I had no idea. I was just a delivery guy. Like, I needed the money from my family, which obviously is like, Tony can understand that. The willingness to do whatever it takes for your family, even if it's taking jobs you don't really like vibe with. Once again, Tony's been through some terrible situations before, but obviously being on this end where you're basically patching a guy together just so you can watch him get tortured, threatened and stuff like that, not the greatest, but it's better than what Neto is doing to this guy. It's like, yeah, I'm repairing you and fixing you up just so someone can kind of tear you apart again, and it makes you feel a certain way. Just regardless, Tony having a conscience and all that either. You know, obviously she doesn't have a full stomach for this work. Some elements of the criminal world she's like, you know, become accustomed to. She doesn't like it, but it's kind of a necessary evil. This is just, to her mind, it's just completely unnecessary. I get you're trying to get the info you need, but like there's other ways around it. But like kind of going to the brutalic way that Neto does things, she doesn't appreciate. But yeah, especially now that she got sympathetic and understands, like, right, this guy has a family. He's just trying to do right by his family. She understands as a mother herself, trying to support not only her son, but the rest of her family too, and help out and do what's best for everyone. To the point she even puts him in it, she induces a coma just so he doesn't have to go through more torture. It's like, as long as you don't answer the question, as long as you're in a coma, you can't answer their questions and you don't have to worry about continue to be tortured in the process and all that. So Tony was able to kind of buy him some more time. And then obviously the duality of what she's doing for the criminal world versus what she's doing as her legitimate job as a doctor, where she has a patient, Ernest, who wants to be around his wife, Edna. And he was kind of taken here, and he's like, yeah, I kind of left her behind. She'll be mad at me. And obviously, Tony's boss doesn't have the best bedside manner, so she comes in and it's like, well, my boss doesn't think I could do a good job. Let's prove him wrong. And then Ernest being like, yeah, let's do that. And let's do that. I was like, I thought that was a cute moment. But the problem is later on, Ernesto has an incident. I don't know if it was like, I think he was in a cardiac arrest, and Tony tried to resuscitate him and put a tube in him. But the problem is that's not how Ernest he wouldn't want that to be. So, it is that complicated thing as a doctor where it's like, you as a surgeon, you just want to fix everything. Her boss is like, well, surgeons have a God complex and stuff like that. But I think it's also just from Tony, like, I don't want to see people suffering. Like, if there's a problem, I want to try and fix it. But it's like, right, you never read this chart. You never know, like, what, you got to remember what, you have your idea of what you want to do. And I get it. Like, I would never be smart enough. I don't have the know-how, obviously, because I didn't go to school for it. But also just in general, I don't think I had the fortitude and everything that comes with being a doctor and a surgeon in particular. But it's like, you see a problem, you want to fix it, and you want to help somebody. You want to know, no, I want you to survive. I want you to live more than what you might, like, you don't care to think about, like, oh, what they might want in the end. You kind of don't think about that immediately. And she just jumps to, like, I'm trying to save someone. And even her boss is like, sometimes you need to be less of a savior and just being that helping hand, that hand that holds them as they kind of let go. So that is something that Tony ends up bringing to the whole situation with Rex, because they need to wake him up later on, shoot him with adrenaline, because we need to wake him up and get answers. Because Ramona ends up talking to Jorge about all of it, because the name that Neto initially gets is like, oh, my money's on Fang. It's like, would he really have any reason to do all this? And it's like, yeah, but if it is him, you have to make a show of it and kill him in front of people. But it's also like, Jorge's like, hey, I can't do that because I'm trying to legitimize the business and stuff like that. And I can't be out and about and, put myself in danger like that. Because Ramona's kind of like, I get it, I had to do it. He's like, no, Ramona, you always hid in the shadows and that benefited you. But if I'm out here in the open trying to legitimize like this whole like thing with this lithium and stuff, like I can't also be like out here capping people in such a public manner and means of drawing so much attention. Like, I'm too much in the light. You had the benefit of hiding in the shadows wholeheartedly and never having to worry about that. But I do, like, I have a persona in the daylight that I could end up jeopardizing, which could jeopardize this whole operation. But yeah, later on when Tony ends up coming back and she sees the situation that Rex is in after she woke him up, she's the one that put his suffering to an end, because he was going to be in so much pain. They were probably going to kill him regardless, but it's like they were trying to get information out of him first. But Tony was just like, he's like, promise me, like, here on the back of my family's photo is the coordinates where I buried that money, which we saw him do at the beginning of the episode. It's like, make sure my family gets that. And she's like, okay, I'll make this as painless as possible. And he's like, I'm scared. And she's like, I'm right here with you, and was there for him. Obviously tying into both sides of Tony's story in this episode, tying into the title of the episode, Mercy. I believe that's what it's called. I said that with such confidence, and now I'm like, oh, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I misread that. But either way. Obviously, Jorge kind of sees through Tony because he's like, did you actually kill the guy? And she's like, I had no choice. Because Neto calls out BS at the time. And so Jorge's like, all right, he is upset with her doing that. But she's like, I didn't have much of a choice. The guy didn't really know anything. He didn't know who hired him. He was just doing what was for his family, the money. And it's like, what money? So they went to go investigate the money. Tony went along, and the moment Jorge saw the money, he's like, I know who did it. I was like, it's got to be Neto. And it ended up being, because they focus on like some of the stuff he was taking out of his pocket. His money's got a very specific band around it, which is so interesting because that came up in another show this week too. I won't spoil the episode or the show in particular, but there was a show I was watching this week that kind of had a similar thing where I was like, oh, they got to focus on like the thing the person wraps their money in, and that comes up to reveal like, oh, very similar thing of like, oh, you're associated with this. So yeah. Now knowing that Jorge puts on a big performance in front of everybody who shows up, because Ramona put word out. She talked to that dude El Don who helps her out, which we'll get to Ramona's side of things in a little bit later. But he gathers up everyone. It's like, yes, Jorge has my backing, because I already know what all the whispers amongst everyone calling my brother weak. And so he made a whole point of it, smacked what's his face over the back of the head with the lithium, and they kind of duked it out. Home dude had a knife. To be fair, Jorge didn't have anything on. I mean, he might have had a gun, but I doubt it, because he would have. That probably would have come up more in the fight. So he came into that barehanded, like you came in with a knife and stuff. So But yeah, even on the ground, knife in his chest, still talking shit. It's like, yeah, see, there's that scared boy. And Jorge got on top of him and bashed his head in with, I don't know if it's a different rock or the same lithium that he was showcasing. So yeah, made a point to everybody. So he's like, see, I am Sin Cara. So I don't know if it's definitely not the first person Jorge's ever killed, but especially under those circumstances, like probably like with your bare hands like that. I mean, yes, you used to rock, but it's a little more like, it's a lot more than just like a bang bang. It's a little obviously more visceral. So it all worked out in the end. He was able to prove his point. So that should keep people in line, but you never know. There could always be people gunning for him, still believing not enough. But I'm like, nah, it's probably a thing of that was probably enough to solidify things. So, and ultimately, Tony is able to drop off the money to Rex's family, but then she's photographed at the end of the episode, which I'm like, I'm curious what that is. Now, either that's someone that's connected to all this. It could be Fang, because we know like he kind of looked after Tony when oh yeah, because we completely forgot about, oh god, what was his name from last episode, which we hadn't seen him, so they must have got him out of town or something, because there was like no hint or reference to him at all, not unless we check in with him next episode. But I guess they must have got him out of Vegas or something. I was actually kind of expecting him to almost be like a recurring character. It's like, nope, got him out of Vegas. So either it's going to be a situation of that's Fang keeping an eye on her because he still associated her with what went down last episode, or this might tie into that storyline I was referencing in episode 1 of this season. And I could be misremembering, but I'm pretty sure like she got a call in season 3's finale, and I want to say Tony answered the phone, but I don't remember if it just like rang or whatever. But like, wasn't the whole setup like whoever like Ramona is set up connected to? Like I said, don't remember if there was someone that was high up in the cops, like a high FBI agent or someone in that lane, or whether this was like a government official. It sounded like it was someone pretty powerful she had as an ally that now like Ramona was locked up. They were going to Tony. That's what I was kind of remembering them set up. But like, I could be completely making that up and misremembering that, but I'm pretty sure that's how I think that's like the last bit of season 3's finale. And so that's why I was bringing it up in like, I think episode 1 being like, oh, are they not pulling that thread? So either that's them finally pulling that thread, or that's completely unrelated. Because like I said at the time, I was like, not unless they completely abandoned that storyline, but this could be it resurfacing, and that guy, whoever it was or that person she was like, that powerful person is now keeping an eye on Tony to see what she's up to. We'll have to wait to see how that goes. Like I said, we don't have any law enforcement directly involved anymore. That all kind of went kapoof with Russo. Like I said, Jeremy's still out there, but I guess they're just not bringing him back. That character just, I guess, got transferred or whatever. So I guess that's all there is to that. So, like I said, he could always pop up again, but who knows? So like I said, I don't know if they're just like completely done with like the FBI side of things, and we're bringing someone of a similar ilk in, or someone of a higher department in. We'll have to wait to see what that whole storyline beat ends up being. Circling back to the Ramona of it all, she ended up getting some information because she had a guy talking to Chiqui's dad, because Chiqui's like, oh yeah, like, I think the whole bruja thing you got going is complete and utter horse shit. She's like, most people, like, you say you're like an art dealer that was arrested on false charges of murder. It's like, yeah, but most people who kind of, are white collar criminals like that and end up in this hardcore of a prison, break down, they cry. You've been here for weeks, you ain't shed a tear. Plus the work you've been putting in on that punching bag. It's like, yeah, something's up with you. She's like, I'm gonna figure out who you really are. And then she plays up the bruja angle, even more so. Like, no, I can't communicate with your mom. Oh, your mom, she's apologetic about like falling asleep while smoking, and that led to your house getting on fire and you getting burned. Oh, your mom's so proud of you. She's sorry, yada, yada, yada. Got her drinking that back. I was like, what the hell is it? You didn't even check. You're just assuming, like, because I guess it's like, it benefits you that Chiqui's like very susceptible and superstitious to believe in all that you are, she at first got sucked in, but then enough time passed, she was like, oh, this is bullshit. So you had to sell her even harder on it. And then also like you ended up drugging her. Gave her something that, like, I don't know if that was drugs or something to overdose her and poison her. So kind of took out the top dog. I don't know. I'd assume people to associate it with you because literally so many people were around and saw you give her something to drink. So I don't know if that's Ramona like snatching some of that power away. Like what happens with that power vacuum? Like does like one of Chiki's like people like fill that void? Is Ramona gonna try and fill that void? And it's like one of her obstacles is out of the way. And it's like without their leader, I don't see anyone else following suit, but we'll see how that shakes up and plays out. We also have the situation with Fiona. Fee's struggling obviously to keep the business going because she's losing more and more workers because they're losing contracts. They're not being able to get supplies like they need to either. It's just money's not coming in. They're losing money. One of the workers end up like telling her like, oh yeah, I got like this very like undocumented like ride share situation. They basically give you someone's identity and you can like illegally because work. And yeah, the guy hooks Fee up and he's like, oh yeah, your name's now Blanche. And she was initially not going to do it, understandable, like because if you get caught, you've been in this situation being undocumented and how that screwed you over too. So it's like you don't want to be in a situation where you could get caught, but there's too much money on the line and you kind of need it because you need to take some of that money to infuse it back into the business so you can make money with your job without compromising yourself or putting yourself in very unfavorable positions. So but yeah, like she was all happy about it until she got offered a job. But the problem is that the people immediately were like, "Oh, like when she rolled up in her van." I get it; it's not like the sexiest or prettiest vehicle, so it just kind of freaked people out. So now Fee lost those opportunities. Then she catches Chris and Ted, who are supposed to be studying for their GEDs, like burning out. Wheeling out in some vehicles, and now like she's pissed at him. Ted made a remark like, "Oh my God, you still got this van? That's so crazy." I remember when I was a kid. Once again, he didn't mean anything by it. He was just like, "Oh my God, that's so cool." It's such a like that kind of takes me back to my childhood. I think it's actually so dope that you kept it around. But for Fee, it's just she already has so many people judging her, especially people she was trying to do a ride share for judging her. So she kind of had issue with Ted. I mean, it also makes sense considering like, his mom talks a lot of shit and gossip, so it's like, obviously, like, Fee's going to associate it. She's like, no, go ahead and tell your mom that I do the same thing. I'm also a cleaning lady, and I'm still, trying to do whatever I can to make sure everything works out for my children. And that's the thing. It's interesting how they play into this, too, where it's like she is more there for Chris, at least from Jazz's perspective, where it's just like Chris gets to do whatever he wants. He ends up getting a motive for attention. It's to the point Jazz is like a lot of responsibility falls on her because it's like, oh, she's supposed to like pick Luca up, but it's like, oh, we can get Samantha to do it. She's even saying like, oh, if I do get into college, I'm gonna go far east just to get away from all of this. Her mom was supposed to pick her up for the college fair. She didn't. And it's just like, oh, of course, something with Chris came up. And it's like, well, it's a lot of things that happen at once. It isn't just Chris, but she's just feeling like ignored. Because I think like, yeah, her dad gives her a lot of attention, but she feels like, oh, like Chris, everything going on with Chris is way more important. Everything else is more important than me. It's just, yeah, it's understandable why you'd kind of, let's not forget, wasn't that last season? Yeah, she was jumping down, Chris's throat for him just straight up abandoning her the way he did last season. So it's so it's just like obviously she just feels like yeah, guys act like I'm not a part of this family either. I kind of get thrown to the wayside in a lot of ways. But yeah, luckily Ted and Chris, mainly Ted, because like they worked on because he's like, yeah, my uncle runs a shop, and I think there's probably going to be a little bit more with that with Ted because apparently he's really good with vehicles because his uncle's teaching him a lot. So they ended up sprucing up the van, spicing it up a bit, kind of as a gift. So we'll see if that kind of benefits Fee in the future when it comes to the whole rideshare thing. But yeah, like I said, I wasn't sure. The Chris thing being found out as soon as it was, I was like, oh, so I guess we don't have to worry about that happening in the background. But that storyline did end up helping Fee with her storyline. So I'm curious to see, like, this rideshare thing. I'm sure that's going to, like, Fee will probably find herself in a complicated situation going forward because of that, or I don't know. You just never know how these plot threads will play out for each individual story, but also you never know, like, how much of an effect will it have on the overarching story? Like, will that ever bleed over into Tony's stuff? Kind of, yeah, because the more Fee's tied up with certain things, that means other people kind of have to pick up the slack, especially if Tony's stuck between her two jobs. So just some very interesting developments all around, all across the board. It's going to be very interesting to ultimately see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.